Hey guys, Stealth here and welcome to Millennia. This is a new 4X game. Paradox is launching it, and it is quite a bit different from Civ, in case you were wondering. So in this video we're going to have a look at all the things that you can currently do in this game, and, well, go over some of the basic things. Let's go clockwise, shall we? Top left. We have research. You might imagine this as the rest as the civilization games go. Except that this time around you pick a couple of different research projects, up to you which one you get. For example, defenses unlocks archery, tribal elders unlocks the ability to get more research, stuff like that. But if you have 3 out of 5 technologies, you don't need all of them, you can advance to the next age, which in this case is the Age of Bronze. Now, this is pretty straightforward, the Age of Bronze. After that, it becomes a bit more optional, shall we say. You don't necessarily have to go to the next age, which happens to be, for example, the Iron Age. There are several other options, but more on that later. For now, I'm going to go for scouting. I want to be able to get the scout. This is going to spawn immediately the moment that you research scouting, and it will allow the scouts to find potential landmarks, which will give you all sorts of bonuses. I am playing, by the way, as the Dutch, which is a custom nation in this case. So we're going to rename Stuttgart to Amsterdam. As for the cities, a bit like civilization, and yes, you're gonna make me hear that commentary or that comparison a lot, because Civ is basically the golden standard for these 4X games. You have a forest, which is giving me some production, a grassland is giving me some food, hills are giving me some production, and more scrubland is more food. Now, as long as a city is positive on food, it will grow. The more production you have, the faster buildings and units get built, and of course, the more research you get by knowledge, the faster your research is going to go. But the basics. Pretty much standard as is. What else do we have here? Well, there's culture. This is going to allow you to create a town, which acts as a sort of adjacency bit to your main city, in this case Amsterdam. There's also the opportunity for local reforms. Boosts regional efficiency, but it's temporary, sadly. So your region, your area is going to get more efficient, but it'll only last for a short amount of time. And then we have the domains. Right now I only have one. I only have the government. So this government domain is going to slowly tick up, because I am getting 2 government points in this domain. Or rather, I'm getting 2 points in the government domain. And with that, I'm eventually able to spawn a settler. So a settler in this game is not something you build in a capital or in any of your cities. It is something that you spawn through this. There's also this, tribal. I currently have a tribal government, and this is also where your precious government points can go. You can make the choice if you want to save up for a settler, or, for example, get more food production in your homeland. And with that, your homeland might grow faster. If you unlock one of these, you are going to unlock the next one, which could be oral history or community project, or both. You're not necessarily limited to one, you can get multiple. But of course, if you spend your 6 points here, well, you're going to be a bit farther removed from getting a settler. There are more domains, and we'll get to those as they become available. Now over here we see that Amsterdam is currently growing. It has 150% of its food requirement. It is a regional level. And right now, well, there is no production going on. So let's get to work. Units. We got a scout. We have a dugout canoe. This is something I cannot exactly build because I don't have any docks in the area. I can get a warband, which is your basic warrior, or an archer, in which case I first need to unlock that. Couple of buildings, you got your basic walls, you got your town center, which spawns additional government XP per turn, so that's more of your government domain points. We have the dolmen, which gives you more influence points, a one-time border expansion and 100 influence. It's yet a different currency. Food stockpiles, lookouts, councils, they're all locked out, and this is my homeland. It's the historical site where the nation was originally founded. I can also get a project which generates improvement points from production. I'm not going to do that just yet, I'll cover that later. I'm first going to get a town center going, so I can start working a little bit more on those government points, because that government domain has to get to work. Right hand side, you can see the overview of the regions, currently only Amsterdam, and I currently have 2 armies, which are both the guys that you might have seen before. These are those basic war bands. Let's send one slightly over to the east. Let's send the other one to the northeast. And I am on a map that's called Islands, so we're definitely going to need a navy, which I thought was applicable for the Dutch. Bottom right hand side, minimap, end turn button, also an undo button. If you are, well, making a mistake, maybe with placing down an improvement or getting a unit sent to the wrong location, this is the undo button, and you can simply pull the unit back. You could call it save scumming to some effect, I guess, but in this case it can be useful, and I suspect that the devs have thought long and hard before putting something like that in the game. Now over here we have a bunch of resources. This is grassland. And with this, you can, of course, get more food. Now, the same can be said for all of these grassland bits, but right now, I'm currently still working on getting more improvement points. I'm getting one of these per turn. So whereas civilization would have you build a worker, and then the worker would build improvements, you generate these improvement points, and this is also where Amsterdam can get the project that I showed you a moment ago. It's the project Levy Workers, which generates more of those improvement points, so you can build the improvements faster. Let's end the turn. Let's continue scouting our way. After a couple turns, the game says, use your culture power. I can now create a town, or I can get those local reforms. Let's go for getting a town. Now, these towns, what exactly do? They generate a town, a level 1 town, and this increases your region's level. It generates gold, or wealth as this game calls it, and it also increases the amount of influence that you have. This means that the more influence you have, basically I think it's culture from civilization games, your borders start to expand. So having towns is definitely useful. On top of having an influence bonus, they also improve defenses for the regional capital, so they sort of produce additional defense points, if you will. And newly produced units can be set to spawn there instead of the capital. So let's say you are bordering a hostile faction, you want to get rid of them, you can just use this as a spawn point. You can increase the town's level, at least to level 2, they can be specialized to generate additional resources. So that's nice to have. You can only have these either inside your border or just outside of it, but not very far. Let's put one over there. Now, Bad Salza, let's go to rename that to Rotterdam. Currently, cannot change the specialization because for that I need that level 2. Now, right now, there's a +0 bonus because I'm not adjacent to the main town. There's no change for wealth, and I can set this to that rally point that the game just mentioned. So right now we have that additional town, but it's not actually doing much of anything. Let's continue scouting. I'm going to give these guys the order next turn. These are going to continue south. Oh, we got a border over here, and there is something undiscovered in this forest. This is a potential landmark. It's something that I'm very interested in. Oh, and we have... Are you barbarians by any chance? We have a barbarian army. Now, the barbarians apparently attacked me, which you can see by this shield with the crossed swords. It says, combat, you've been attacked by barbarians. This is the animation, if you will, for the armies that are going after each other. It's just clubs. It's not anything fancy at this point. So we're just going to town against each other. Units have, of course, a health bar, but they also have a morale bar. I get a bonus against cavalry, which, sadly, in this case, really does not help me. Now, the morale for the barbarians is higher than mine, so I hope that my unit can last a little longer. But for now, they should be fine. I am, however, going to be a little conservative and pull them back, because I would like very much to have these guys around in order to do a bit more scouting later. Now, what I can do with this scout is have a look at this landmark, whatever that is. Unfortunately, I don't have any moves remaining, so I cannot actually discover this thing yet. Let's continue. Over in the north, we have the other warrior, the other warband, and they're going to just patrol their merry way there. Now, with that scouting, research complete, that's what spawned that scout for me, and now I can look into a different project. Workers unlocks the clay pit. Now, what does the clay pit do? A place where clay is mined, yes. This clay pit, as well as being able to improve the output of levy workers, can be very useful if I want to start improving the town around me. Plus 8 improvement points just for researching that. At this point I have 6 of those points. I can get a hunting camp. Eventually I can also get a dock for 12 points. I can get a forester, which is going to start gathering forestry, or rather wood, of course. The problem is, however, that I'm not sure if this defense bonus is going to last. Of course, I much prefer a forward defense where I don't have to worry about that at all. For now, though, I'm thinking potentially a hunting camp is more useful, and the game says, well, you can build that exactly here. Now, Amsterdam has 200% of the food that it needs and is growing a lot faster. So let's end the turn and proceed. Once again, my scout comes under attack. Fortunately, these guys have been healed up a little, so I can now push them back. Get rid of these barbarians. I'm not a terribly big fan of these animations, and I just tend to skip them. And now we can have a look at exactly what we have found. A mysterious jungle gives me 5 exploration XP. I also get 10 combat XP. Now that's for the unit itself, but there's also warfare XP. The game is quite fancy with all of these domains. Now, I have just gained those exploration points, or the exploration XP. And with that, I'll eventually be able, I'll eventually be able to spawn another scout. So this is, at least for now, a sort of self-reinforcing scouting force. The more she scouts, and the more she spots, the more scouts I can spawn. With warfare, the more warfare XP you get, the more you'll be able to start spawning additional armies. Now, this is not so much a snowball, because at some point I suspect you might want to have other options available, and they will become available with time. For now, though, let's keep our units alive. That's not to be overly aggressive. Oh, I forgot about this camp. There's a tribal camp here. It's peaceful. It's basically what... I think it's a tribal village, to some extent, in Civ. And with that, you might get a random bonus. Can be pretty much anything. So let's have a look at what I'm getting here. A lost warband units hiking through the wilderness. They're wary and looking for help. I can bring them with me, which is going to give me another warband, or I can get myself an additional 10 warfare XP. I'm just going to spawn an additional warband. This warband is now added to this army. You can, if you want to, rename this, and now have a bit more combat power, because this is a 34, so it's just a simple doubling of the forces that you have here. A mixed army, so let's say having a couple, or a warband, maybe 2 warbands and an archer, can be very useful, because archers tend to get different bonuses when they're fighting different types of units. Pull these guys back to Rotterdam. The region is now idle. It's the region of Amsterdam. And completing the town center is going to give me that increased XP. I am interested in getting another scout. So let's get the scout cavalry going. And with that, just scout out a bit faster. Amsterdam is growing quite nicely. The problem with growing is that it is also going to require more food. More food is going to require further improvements, and with that, you're kind of stuck in this loop, up until the point, at least early game, where you're going to be up to a level 8 town, and at that point, you're going to start running into different issues, but more on that later. Now, those barbarians, of course, had to come from somewhere, and this is exactly where. This is a barbarian encampment. And unfortunately, these barbarian encampments are pretty well defended. They start with palisade walls, which is sometimes, depending on the unit you bring, a bit tough to deal with. So I'm going to have to be a little bit more careful. I'm going to attach my scouts to that army and make sure that they're ready to take on that fight. Yep, and here we have another force. Let's go. So now I'm 48, but what I can do is turn these guys into a leader. With this, you're buffing your army with their tactics stat, so it's basically a combat bonus. However, I don't have 10 warfare XP. So let's go get some more. Let's go attack these guys. You're slowly getting XP. I cannot just run into this town or into this barbarian encampment right now. I'm first going to have to do a bit of healing. As for the other guys, I'm going to keep them here. I don't know how many more barbarians have spawned, so I'd rather be careful rather than overly aggressive and find that I accidentally don't have any defenses left. As for the other scout, let's send that north. These guys, I'm going to park them until they're healed up. They're just going to wait. Workers is ready, so that's an additional improvement point. 8 of them. And I think the rest is going to go into tribal elders, because with that I'll be able to get the council building, which is going to give me 1 knowledge per turn. So it speeds up your research. As for my culture, I'm almost ready to get either another town or to get a Eureka or even raise an army. So these culture points can be quite important. And this is why I think in this game you can't just ignore culture. In some of the Civ games you kind of could, at your peril. In this game, not so much, because the more culture you have, the more of these things you can get. And for example, a Eureka is going to give you 5 additional knowledge. Immediately gain knowledge. So you might be able to speedrun your way through research. And thereby, of course, make everything quite a bit faster. Now I have trained that additional scout, and now I'm going to have a lookout tower, which also serves as a small defensive building, basically a guard tower, in case we're going to get attacked. Rotterdam has also grown a bit, which is nice. And with that culture, yeah, unfortunately this area cannot support another town. So with the culture, I don't feel like I really need another army. I can just keep these stored up for now. But having a Eureka is nice, because that means I'm going to be getting faster to the tribal elders. So faster to my ability to increase my research. Faster is better. Alright, continue scouting out to the north. These guys should be relatively healthy. And let's go and have a fight. First, we're going to have to break down those walls, which, considering we're basically using clubs, is going to take a while. They do happen to come out, but because they have these palisade walls, the barbarian defenders themselves are basically impervious. Now this is going to just keep going for a while, up until the walls are down, at which point you're finally able to go after the defenders. And of course, they have to go down. Preferably sooner rather than later, because I am very much uninterested in getting a whole bunch of barbarians constantly spawning there. Now, I can also get defenses and farming. I'm not that eager to rush to Bronze Age, because I think farms, considering the amount of food that I'm going to need, are pretty required. So let's get that researched. Send this guy over to the northwest. And let's get the barbarians engaged yet again. We're getting closer to eliminating them, but we're not quite there yet. Oh, hello. There's something else out there. We're going to have to scout that out again. So what do we have here? Another landmark. +5 exploration, 1 discovered landmark, and additional combat XP. Very nice. Alright. Yep. Let's go and pick another tech, because we've immediately completed farming. Yeah. Do I really need archers at the moment? I don't think so. It does give me warfare XP if I research this. No, we're gonna go to Bronze Age. Let's continue. These guys, I have them attack every once in a while, so that they can basically heal up one turn, and the next turn they can attack again. And suddenly the walls are gone. And now I can strike directly at the defenders. So now I can finally get rid of that barbarian encampment. The barbarians have left behind distinguished looking artifacts. I can sell them for scrap for additional money. Or I can say, well, that looks pretty good. I'm going to gift those and get those culture points. Let's do that instead. Now, with the government, I can finally spawn another settler. Or rather, I've been able to spawn another settler for a while. I just neglected to do so. A settler can spawn a new settlement. This, however, turns into a vassal. It is not something you control directly, and this is something I don't quite like. Because it means that first you're going to have to turn this vassal into a part of your empire, which you can do. It just takes a little bit of time. So, unfortunately, you're not able to build a new town and immediately control that. It's going to operate as, let's say, its own entity for a while. Now, this part over here looks quite nice. Well, except for the fact that there's barbarians over there. The rest of it, I think, is pretty interesting, and it could also serve as a bit of a blocking off force against further expansion of whatever faction is down there. So let's have these guys get an escort and be ready to figure out what else is out there. As for the region, it is now idle. Let's get that council building for additional research and end the turn. These barbarians seemingly are very eager to meet their demise. I'm not sure why, but hey, the sooner I get rid of these guys, the better. And now I have, so now I can just have these guys on guard. Well, actually, no. I need to wake them up and have this thing looked into. Strange design. The machines and tools used in this village are unlike any other. 5 knowledge or 5 improvement points. I think knowledge is currently more useful because I'll be getting that advancement faster. I do have 21 improvement points at this point. Let's go and build a dock. Unfortunately, I can't, because I'm not anywhere near the water just yet. I think you need to actually grab a water tile in order to do that. Yeah, cannot be placed here. So, something else then. I can get that clay pit. Gathers clay. Clay right now I don't think is that useful yet, but these things are tiered. So clay might be gathered in order to go into, let's say, a pottery or a kiln of some sort, and then turned into something else. So there's a tiered structure to this. A pasture gives me pasturage. Yeah, I'm not even sure I have one of them, because this is not part of my area just yet. So for now, I can't even build a plantation yet because I have no useful parts. Okay, fine. Let's go get a forester. The forester should be able to provide a bit more production, which is always helpful to have. And, yeah, it still provides that defensive bonus because, of course, they don't immediately take down the town. Alright, scout. The scout, unfortunately, cannot traverse the water yet. So we're going to have to be a little patient with that little bit. These guys, I know you guys are healing up, but I also want to have a look at whatever's happening down there. It could be a minor power, like a minor state, that we might be able to either take over, or, well, let's say, motivate to join us using the sword. I think my scout right now can't do that much useful, so let's start concentrating my forces a bit more. And here we go. Advancement. Egypt is the first to get to the Bronze Age. This unlocks a whole host of new opportunities, but I am not there yet, although I will be in the next turn. Now, the 5th Army, this is a bit of a weird term, but okay. The more of these guys that you start merging and then splitting, the more the game kind of loses track about what is what. And they just start going, yeah, this is your 5th, 6th, 7th, 15th army. They just start adding numbers to it. Okay, what do we have here? I can send an envoy to this minor nation to become a vassal. Or I can send an army and raise the place. I can't spawn a new settler yet, but I can start looking into getting some of these bonuses. So let's get the additional food. Improvement points are always valuable, and yes, so is knowledge, but for now, I'm going to get a bit more of these improvement points, not just for this place, well, actually, yeah, just for this place for right now. Because I won't really be able to start getting any kind of improvements for my new town. I can spawn a new scout, I can almost spawn volunteers, but at the moment I don't need either, so I'm going to save up some of those points. That might be a mistake, but so be it. Now, New Age. I have now access to new domains. Much like government and warfare and exploration, we also have diplomacy and engineering. I also will be getting a national spirit, and we're going to be getting a trade system. Now, the trading is allowing you to start trading between regions, and I believe also between settlements. This is something that I'm not going to go too deep in right now. At the moment, let's have a look at what sort of national spirit I want. I can go for the national spirit of exploration, warfare, engineering, or diplomacy. Which one you pick is entirely up to you. I would recommend you pick something that kind of gels well with the type of area that you might have, so that you're working to your strengths. If you have no mountains, if you have no hills, going for ancient if you have no water, then going for ancient seafarers does not make a whole lot of sense. If you're a peace-loving race, maybe warfare is not necessarily the best option for you. As for those interested in going to war, you have two options here. You got raiders. These people are known to raid others. Raiders loot other nations' territories with overwhelming force. You can also get warriors. This is a bit different. Focuses, I believe, more on elite warriors. As for exploration, I think this is the most useful early game to explore more of the world. Naturalists is somewhat different. I mean, this is definitely Navy focused. This is not. This allows you to start foraging a bit better without having to spend as many improvement points. Can be very useful. Wild hunters, hunters of beasts and men. Wild hunters proficient at combat and harvesting animal goods. Let's see. Olympians. I wasn't that big of a fan because I don't really do that well with diplomacy yet in this game. Engineering, I think, can be good. The God King dynasty erects grand monuments in honors of the nation's ruler, or mound builders, focus on unique improvements to support high population regions. I think that in line with at least the current high population density of the Netherlands, I'm going to go with this. Now, once you have selected this, and you're basically just looking at this thing right now, once I click select, I'm actually stuck with this. I can get burial mound, which is going to give me more culture. I can get more sanitation, all the way in the end where you can get more engineering in your home XP, but that does require me to build 5 of these burial mounds. All of these things have their own benefits, of course, but you will have to unlock them first with research. I am going to go with this, with the mound builders. I'm going to try and get my population up a bit more. As for, let's see, can you get a farm yet? Yeah, let's get a farm here. More food will grow Amsterdam faster, and that's kind of what I need right now. This place, yeah, I'm going to have them over here. So I'm getting all sorts of bonuses here. So you're going to wait 1 turn. And this group is already full, unfortunately. Now, some of these bonuses that some of these factions or some of these units can get, such as this scout, is this one, Survivalist. If you are in neutral territory, you are able to heal. But that is not free. It comes at the expense of exploration points. So while you might be saving up something for exploration like getting an additional scout, be very wary what you click down here with the abilities of your units. Because that shiny metal might look nice, but it does come at the expense of warfare XP. So be careful about what you pick. As for right now, I can spend it, but I can just as well just wait a bit until these guys are healed up. As for that scout, oh, we're in the snow biome. Okay. There's a glacier over here. Yeah, I think sooner rather than later we're going to have to start sending out some sort of ship just in order to figure out what else is out here. As for my next culture bonus, I'm thinking cutting edge. This increases my innovation. So what is that? Well, top right hand side, you have innovation and you have chaos. Innovation is good, chaos not so good. Innovation accumulates each turn, and I am currently getting 15 per turn. I have not seen these events yet. Once an innovation event happens, it just resets. It can be built up as the result of positive event choices, for example, cutting edge, which I just clicked on. If you are the first to enter an age, that also generates innovation. The alternative is chaos. Chaos accumulates each turn, similar like innovation. Once it happens, it resets. It can be built up due to negative events, such as having unrest or not meeting needs. Try to avoid the chaos if you can. Now, seeing as we are in the Bronze Age and there is quite a lot of water, we're going to do shipbuilding. I want to be able to start getting exploration ships. I also want to be able to get a galley out there and potentially transports, because this allows units such as scouts to be loaded into transports, but only on shallow water. So that's going to take me a bit of time to research. Now with the settler, I have built this new town. It is, however, as I mentioned, a vassal. I cannot directly control it, unfortunately, because this is something I'm very used to when I'm building a new city and civilization. It is going to take me 15 turns before I'm even able to start thinking of integrating this, which will then cost you government points. So you're going to have to save up your government XP, and you're going to have to wait a couple of turns before this thing actually becomes anything that you might even think about absorbing. Not my favorite mechanic, but I am interested to see how that will play out eventually. As for right now, it is mostly a let's just defend and wait for something interesting to happen while we're researching the ability to build ships. Now remember those innovations? Here's one right now. Multi-terrace mounds. The architects of the Dutch have begun building even larger multi-leveled mounds with more than one terrace. I can accept this, which is going to give me an improvement point. I believe it's going to give you a structural improvement point, so your income increases. Or I can just get 300 gold. I'm going to go with the improved income, because the more of these improvement points I get, and able to start researching or able to start building improvements faster, the more I will be able to grow. If you are strapped for cash, you can do that, of course. For right now, I don't have that many units, so my unit upkeep isn't that big. I don't need all that money. A couple turns later, I have researched some more gear, and I can show you a bit more about how the tech tree fits together. One of the things that the game has allowed me to do is build a clay pit. Great, but it doesn't give you anything but clay. True, but in tandem with the kiln, it does. This is going to give you an engineering XP, which can be really valuable. Converts clay into production and improvement points, or rather, that's what clay gives you, into 1 bricks, which is going to give you 2 production and 2 improvement points. So having a sort of industry form around your city can be extremely valuable. Make sure, though, that you do have enough to build them both. Otherwise, you're just going to have clay, which is, well, great, but it's not terribly useful. Having the tier 2 or potentially even tier 3, tier 4, depending on the tech tree that you're going for, building can be vastly more valuable. Unfortunately, right now, I don't really have the right amount of workers yet. This one, the clay pit, it is giving me production, sure, it's giving me improvement points, but I only have 4 workers. So what I'd much rather have is also, ideally, either an additional hunting camp, which is going to give me a little bit of food, like it's going to give me, I think, 6 food? Gather, hunting camp. 1 meat, 3 food. Or I can get a dwelling, which is something you'll eventually need as your population grows. You need places to house them. You can also get cooking, which is going to give you a mill, but that needs to convert wheat or rice into flour. Is that something I have? Yeah, but not enough. I only have 1 wheat. I don't have rice yet, so I need to get more of that. So that is not too interesting. Woodworking allows you to build the saw pit. Converts 3 logs into 3 lumber, which is x4 production. Quite nice, but do I have enough logs? No, sadly not. Because again, I'm kind of missing workers. I have a forester, I have another forest, but I don't have the workers. So yeah, food is definitely a priority. I would love to take this grassland, but right now, I don't believe that I quite have the ability to gather that. Like, there's, as far as I know, not really a good way for me to grab that additional tile. So, unfortunately, I'm kind of stuck with it. Actually, let's get the additional knowledge point. Get more research. And save up a bit. Just to get some additional food going. and make sure that I actually have the staff for all of these facilities. A little bit of research later, I now have the 3 research technologies that I need in order to advance to the next age. This, however, where I mentioned I can only advance to the Bronze Age, you now have options. If you have killed a couple of units from other nations, you get the option to go to a Crisis Age. This is the Age of Blood. I do believe that everybody goes to war once you get to the Age of Blood. Basically, it turns into a frickin' world war. Alternatively, the Age of Heroes allows you to go for an age where there's more questing, more exploration, and this is requiring me to get 1 more landmark. Unfortunately, I'm not quite at that point yet, so I'm just going to go to the Age of Iron. Maybe I can still switch to the Age of Heroes if I find a landmark, and my scout is working in order to find landmarks. For now, sadly, no joy. This scout is now embarked and can disembark onto territory. Oh, hello. We have found another faction. She can embark onto different areas, but of course she cannot maneuver into other territories if you don't have an open borders treatment with them, or treaty. So what do we have here? We have Egypt. They have 2 regions. They have a power score of 311, which is 50% greater than mine. I'm still learning the game, so I'm making probably all sorts of mistakes. I can propose open borders or even declare hostilities, which definitely something I do not want to do. Right now, I don't think that there are any problems with this, but Egypt might disagree. What I also have over here is a pioneer. Now the pioneer is able to build an outpost. The outpost, as far as I understand it, is basically a mini expansion to your territory. And with the outpost, you're able to gather more resources to the place that it is connected to. The problem is, the Infopedia says, they are temporary. They don't necessarily give you any long-term staying power. A deployed outpost can also be reverted back. So it's basically I'm going to set up shop here for a minute. And with that, you might be able to claim unclaimed tiles. Units, they heal faster. So if you're doing some expeditionary warfare, get a pioneer with them, build that outpost, and they'll be able to heal faster. You build them inside of a range of a town, capital city, or minor nation, they will cause these things to get connected with roads. Very useful. Get your units there faster. A variety of improvements can be built in the territory around an outpost. So, for example, in this area, where I don't really have a presence yet, I should now be able to build that animal pasture here. And the pasture is going to give me exploration XP. So let's get this built. Cannot be built here? Really? Oh, my bad. It has to be a trading post. I mean, I see cows and I'm thinking pasture, but the game goes, nope, that's a trading post. Okay, fine. This was generally outside of my borders of influence, so I couldn't get that. But now that I have these guys over here with the outpost, I can. And the same can be said for some of these other positions. So this grassland, for example, I can build a trade outpost there, which is expensive. It's 30 30 improvement points. So pick wisely where you might want to build one of these things. You might not have the sheer luxury of building it anywhere you like. I mean, sure enough, you can, but it is a hefty investment, at least early game, those 30 points. The world is progressing quickly and we're now in the Age of Iron. Mine improvements cost less during this Age of Iron. Growth of population increased by 12.5%, and new governments are unlocked. Government points are something that you're going to be, at least from my experience, stressed for. Like, you're always going to need more government points. Speaking of, remember that town of Utrecht? I can now integrate it. 25 government points says it is now mine. This means I can directly control this place. It does, however, seem to be lacking for food quite a bit. So let's give these poor people something to eat. In the form of a plantation. It's going to cost me 31, but that's fine. And now we're at 150% food. Let's give them something else. Well, I don't really want to give them a mill. I'm getting cotton from this, which is additional wealth. It's nice, but it's not food. As for additional food, I don't really want a plantation. I still haven't built those burial mounds either, which is, yeah, it's those culture points. I mean, they're useful, but right now, I'm trying to get this thing to grow. So let's give them a farm instead. And Utrecht's now getting 175% food and growing quickly. But now I'm going to have to wait quite a while, because I'm still only gathering 3 government XP per turn. So in order to finally upgrade, or rather absorb this town, it's going to cost me 38. That's, yeah, that's quite a way away. Up until such a point, they're only really giving me like 0.23, almost no science, almost no culture, and almost no improvement points. They are developing extremely, extremely slowly. Sadly, because of course I would love them. I would love it if these guys would actually get going a little faster. What do we got there? I should still have a scout somewhere. I just kind of forgot where, because I used to have 2 of them. Yeah, here she is. Alright, let's have this scout go over. Thankfully, in this game, you don't need to transport ships. If you are, for example, on an island and you want to go in, you first have to research, then you load it onto a transport. Unit goes and is embarked, and now can be moved onto at least the shallow water tiles initially. Alright, Amsterdam is completing its objective. Let's start getting diplomacy XP, because I'm trying to get another domain going. And this is where you can kind of start making some choices. Do you want to go for one of these domains hard? Like, I want to focus a lot on experience or exploration, or I want to focus a lot on warfare. Or are you going to start spreading these things out by getting additional buildings, such as, in this case, the meeting hall, which will also give me diplomacy XP and allow me to get potentially more options by also getting some, diplomacy into the diplomacy domain. Here we go, she's scouting. This is a scout ship. Unfortunately, nothing there. I can harvest goods by fishers, but right now I seem to have bigger issues. That's a barbarian ship, and I just have basically, well, no firepower. I did eventually end up building that docks. Amsterdam expanded just enough, so I can also start building a ship. But right now, I think I'd rather have that meeting hall first, and then we can build the galley. So eventually we'll be able to start sending some ships and getting some damage out. But early game, well, I think I'm still early game with the Iron Age. Not as much. After a while, it seems that Egypt has decided that I am no longer worthy of going unnoticed. They've declared hostilities. Now, what I really like about hostilities is that there's this sort of intermediate phase between open warfare and peace. Civilization is either one or the other. This one is half and half. Combat is allowed, but only in neutral territory. So if you do find somebody in neutral territory, they're fair game. If they just move back into their borders, or I move back into mine, not as much. So they have declared hostilities, and I might need to get ready for some trouble with Egypt. I don't know if they're able to actually get to me yet. Potentially they are. Just, by the way, look at how big Pi Ramesses is at 11. Versus my 5 in Amsterdam. I probably should have focused a lot more on food. But sadly, I made some different choices. Hopefully I can still come back from that. Anyway, open hostilities are now a thing. So it is possible that the Egyptians are going to join me on my little island at some point in the very near future. As you might imagine, after a while some buildings can get upgrades. I used to have a building that gave me a little bit of food. That was the food stockpile. I can now upgrade that to the granary, which is going to give me 15 food as opposed to just 3. So that's a hell of an upgrade. Chase these if you can, because they give you massive upgrades. And with that, all that food, I suspect that we're going to see quite a lot more growth in the population of Amsterdam. Which, considering how far I am behind relative to the Egyptians, might not be a bad thing. I might also start paying a bit of a visit over here to Edirne. This town is neutral right now, and I can eventually spawn an envoy to open negotiations or vassalize these guys through peaceful means. If you want to go the less peaceful route, you can just send in the army, but that will raise the town. That might not be something that I want, because it is in a pretty decent spot. I mean, it has a bunch of resources around it, there's some fish, I might be able to build another docks here. I don't really want to take it down, I'd rather take it over. There's also the integrate vassal, used on a friendly vassal territory to boost its integration process. Noteworthy, it boosts the integration process. The integration process is this bar that fills up on the top, and for Groningen it's now been completed, but I just don't have the integration points yet, like the government XP. I have 29, I need 37.5. But that fills up given a certain amount of time. If you want to speed that up, you can do that with diplomacy. So having a lot of power in the diplomacy domain can be very valuable, because it might allow you to peacefully absorb, or rather assimilate, new factions, or minor nations, or potentially vassals, into your own. And with that, you're going to be getting a lot more population growth, a lot more productivity, potentially more defense, through peaceful exploration and peaceful expansion. As I'm exploring a new island, I find that some of these bonuses are really nice. These ill survivors are going to give me 30 government XP, but if I provide medicine, I can get additional points to arts. It's not a domain I have just yet. So let's get the arts and see what that's about. With the arts you can reduce the unrest. Some nations will get a little bit unruly. At the moment, thankfully, I don't have that problem in any of my towns yet. The bigger they get, the more difficult that unrest can be to control. For example, if you have, I think, a population of 8 or bigger, and you don't actually have enough guards, the unrest will increase. So that's something that you can reduce with unrest from the arts department. You also get immigration. Increases a region population by 1. It's just boom, instantly. Very valuable, and right now could be used on either Amsterdam or Utrecht. And Utrecht is actually growing very quickly, doing very well. And the last one, promote cultural exports. Target a friendly vassal territory to increase its prosperity. Now, if you have a territory which is a vassal, such as Groningen, I can have prosperity. The more the more prosperous it is, the more resources that you get from it. So I might not be able to integrate it at some point, but up until such a time, I can promote the cultural exports and I can make it more prosperous, which will still give me more resources from that one town. For now, though, let's do a bit of immigration, and with that, be able to get more population in Amsterdam. So there we go. We're even potentially mining a water tile, but there's basically nothing there. Well... There used to be, but it has been raised. Isn't that nice? Oh, I've completely forgotten all of my improvement points. My bad. There we go. Prepared. So the docks are functional again, and that is giving me a bit of wealth. It's also giving me exploration points. So in this case, it does yield, or it does warrant your attention to have a look at what tiles you're currently mining. What tiles you're currently using in order to get resources. Because I think the game does a pretty decent job at what you might want, but initially, for example, you might want to prioritize food, so you can get more food and grow your population faster. Unfortunately, as of right now, I don't have enough food, and my needs aren't fully met. I don't have enough housing. So let's address that, especially considering that I have a nice amount of people, or a nice amount of improvement points to do that with. Let's see, over here I can get that. Let's get a civic, let's get a dwelling. You can also build the midden, which is going to give you sanitation. I don't believe that is a requirement for my town just yet, but this immediately fulfills the need of Amsterdam by giving it housing. Way more housing than it needs. Unfortunately, food is so-so, like 100%, but that won't last, of course. So we're going to have to start getting more food and making sure that Amsterdam keeps growing. As my engineering points were sufficient to warrant the expansion of the town, I have now expanded the town of Rotterdam into a town level 2. It's going to give you a bit more in the sense of options, because now the specializations are unlocked. So now I can turn it into a farming town. It's going to give you more food, and even more food with adjacent farming improvements around it. Lumber town, going to give you more production. Mining town, more production from mining improvements. Or coastal town, more wealth from boating improvements. Does not exactly work for Rotterdam, ironically. Based on what I have around it, I think a lumber town would do best, because I can just start plunging down or plucking down all of these forestries, and with that be able to start getting potentially a decent amount of additional productivity, which would very much benefit Amsterdam, of course. We're now looking at a plus 15. It's pretty good, but we can do better. So that is what these towns can do, and for that you need to get the engineering domain up. This also means that you can't really fully ignore one. Some of these things, such as expanding a town, pretty powerful, but you do need engineering. So make sure that you get at least some of it. As for exploration, I haven't done any of this in a long time. I've built a few exploration ships. Not terribly useful, at least not the way I was using them. These guys can be used to start getting goods. Begin harvesting the goods from this territory tile. So let's start getting this. And that should give me the option of also getting additional food from the fish here. If I'm reading this correctly, that is. But I do believe it is. A lot of turns later, I've finally gained enough culture, which I have to rectify. This does not save up. You need to spend this as quickly as possible. Once this bar is filled up, it does not overtick. I can finally go for a peaceful revolution from one form of a government into another. So far, I have been living into this tribal type of government. It's time to change that. We're going to go to a peaceful revolution. The reason why you might want to go with peaceful is because it is the ideal way to transfer power. A not so peaceful transfer of power is possible. This is going to allow you to do that through government points if your culture points are insufficient. But a violent revolution is going to gain chaos. Chaos, not generally what you would want. The more chaos, the more likelihood of negative events. Not doing that. So let's have a peaceful revolution. And now you can transit into either an imperial dynasty or a kingdom. Let's go for the Dutch imperial dynasty. Why not? Let's select this. And new leadership. Your nation grows stronger under new leadership. Unlocks the construct palace domain power. Increases domain XP maximum to 200. And increase improvement points maximum to 200. So you can store up a bunch more. And with these, of course, you can get more of these government points spent on even more things. Such as getting 5 grains, improving food, or getting more region levels. There are a lot of things to unlock, and per type of government these will be different. Now there is tons more to explore about this game. And I hope that this first video has given you a bit of an indication about what you can do and what you can expect with this game. The gameplay that you have witnessed will definitely be pretty far from perfect, because I am definitely not that well versed in the game yet. There is a lot to unpack. I've tried to learn it and turn it into something so that you're going to be able to get a bit of an overview of the game if you're consider purchasing. If you have any questions, let me know down below in the comments and I'll see if I can answer those for you. And I would be very interested to see in the comments as well about what you think about this game. Thank you for watching, hope you found it useful, and I'll see you soon, potentially, for more of Millennia.